Online. Hey, everybody! Kate's new at this, so she was busy taking her gum out and throw her under the bus. I'm going to keep mine in if that isn't too offensive. A little weird because someone has shown up, and yet I'm still talking to you. So if you guys don't know, my name is Sam. I'm one of the pastors, the associate pastor at New Life, and this is my beautiful, wonderful, patient wife, Kate. You guys probably have all met her or seen her before, so I'm going to let Kate just take it away.
What?
So tonight we're going to do around the table. Aaron is not popping in, or at least he's probably still on vacation. We're hanging out at home tonight, and actually the Martells are watching our girls tonight. So thank you, Teresa, Caleb, and Jada for watching Tegan and Quinn. And we're going to try it tonight with Benaiah. He's hanging out somewhere in here, but super quiet. So we'll see where that all goes. But tonight we'd really like to just share with you kind of Kate's story, our story, and just the hope that you guys are able to just get to know us a little bit more, and hopefully for sure get to know Kate a little bit more with her faith story. And so the hope is, like, through the live chat, if you guys jump on there, ask any question you want for Kate. She'd be more than happy to answer that for you. And so, Kate.
Yeah.
I guess we're just gonna jump in, right? As far as the faith story goes, what would you like to share with people? Where would you start?
In Green Bay
Sweet. Start where she was born.
I guess for me, I grew up going to a Lutheran church with my family. I'm the baby of 5 kids, so somewhat of a big family. Grew up going to a Lutheran church, was confirmed, attended that until I was in college. So my freshman year of college, I went to Southern Mississippi, and when I was there, my roommate invited me to a freshman kind of awakening sort of weekend on campus with the Baptist Student Union that was there, because it was down south, so everything's Baptist. And I just went with the intention of just meeting new friends, because I was 15, 16 hours away from home. Didn't really know anybody besides my roommate, who I had briefly had some phone conversations with. And I just went to that event and just met some friends, and was really just kind of awakened, had my eyes open to what faith was really all about. For me, growing up, it was just kind of like I'll go to church so I can say that I did it. My parents would talk about God, but we wouldn't have like super in-depth conversations. I knew my parents had faith, but it wasn't anything that was like openly discussed or just talks amongst our family. And so for me, coming to this thing, I saw kids my age who were just so on fire and in love with Jesus. And I was like, what? Kind of taken aback by it at first, but just really like, what is this about? Like, what's different for them than it was for me growing up? Because I knew, I guess, really about Jesus, looking back, but I didn't really know him personally or intimately. So then I just started just attending their weekly services. They would have a Wednesday luncheon where you could go in and pay I think it was $1. You could go in and have this awesome meal with eat as much as you like, and they had these awesome chocolate chip cookies that you could eat. And I just went, and they would have a speaker come and just give a message while you ate your lunch. And then we would have a little worship time, and it was just completely different from anything that I had ever experienced. I didn't grow up going to anything for youth. I remember going to one speaker with a friend one time, but it didn't really have a lasting impact on me like this did. So then through that, I accepted Christ, realized that it needed to be more of a relationship versus just kind of like this wishful thinking, hoping, prayer sort of thing that I kind of had growing up. And I just realized like there's someone out there that desires to know me and for me to know him. So that's what really kind of just attracted me, was just my classmates, if you want to call them that, just people my age, my peers, just really show me that there's something different, something more to having faith. So that's kind of where it started. And then from there, I started Bible studies with my track team. Started going to FCA, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes thing on campus.
So did you share, I'm sorry, I'm totally cutting her off, but did you share what got you down to, where are you now?
No, so I'm in Mississippi.
Mississippi.
So I went.
We're going to backtrack a little bit. Started out born in Green Bay, and then we jumped.
Right. So I was down there on a track scholarship. I was a high jumper. So I was down there in my freshman year. I actually ended up walking on to the basketball team. And then later on, my senior year, ended up walking onto the volleyball team. So I was down there on a track scholarship, which looking back, it was totally God working things out, because I was originally supposed to go to the University of Tennessee on a scholarship. And then my senior year, right after basketball season in high school, I ended up basically destroying my ankles. Working out, I tore all the ligaments in both of my ankles at the same time doing some box jumps. So Tennessee found out about my injuries and basically said, well, we don't want you anymore. So I hadn't signed my contract with them yet, so it was just a verbal commitment. So they were able to just say, you can come, but we aren't going to give any money. So the spring of my senior year of high school, I was kind of desperate, trying to find where to go to school at that point, and who would give me scholarships, and it's just so late. And then Southern Miss just kind of turned up, and the visit with them was just completely different. Everything just felt right, felt better. Tennessee was very, very high pressure. And at Southern Mississippi, when I went there, it was just, very laid back, similar to me. But yeah.
I'm going to interrupt again, and I just think about Jamie. Aaron and Jamie had a conversation just kind of about like Jamie's success early on. And so you get a track scholarship, you get a scholarship for athletics at any point, kind of means you're a big deal.
Sure.
Right? In athletics. And so, why did University of Tennessee, why were they looking at you? Why did you ultimately sign with and go to Southern Miss?
Mm-hmm.
There had to happen something in high school to be able to have those opportunities.
Right. So, I was just blessed with natural athletic ability. Being the youngest of 5 kids, you kind of have to keep up. And I had 3 older brothers who basically didn't treat me like a baby sister in some ways. They really just, everything was very competitive, and in order to keep up, and if I wanted to play with them and hang out with them, I had to be able to compete kind of at that same level to a point. But so I was a just all-around athlete. I played all the sports. Was just naturally gifted in all of them. But for track, I was one state all 4 years, tied the state record as a freshman for the state meet, and then the overall state record. I tied or I broke, I forget now. When I was a junior at my sectionals meet, when I jumped 5 foot 10 inches. So that's there. Basically I was being recruited by a lot of D1 schools. Was invited to the U.S. Olympics Training Center after my freshman year of high school to do a training camp there. So I got to go there and experience that, and basically just meet girls from all over the country, and just learn from. There was a coach from Arizona. I can't remember his name, but he was leading the camp. So all these pretty awesome experiences. Was just sought after, I guess, by colleges upon winning state my freshman year. From there, and it just kind of kept building. So that's where Tennessee and Southern Miss kind of came in. And I visited Tennessee in the fall, my senior year of high school. And then obviously, like I said before, went to Mississippi actually after I even graduated from high school. We moved from where I graduated from, which is like way up north in the boonies, down to like the Appleton area, my parents and I. So we had moved down there, and after moving there, I went down and visited Mississippi for a visit there, and then they offered me a scholarship. And compared to the other visits I had gone on, like I went to George Mason out in Washington, and that was not my thing. Upon landing, I just was like sick to my stomach, just because I knew it wasn't right. Too big of a city. So, yeah.
So, Jamie, watch out. I think this year we're probably going to have some kind of jump off between you and Kate. I know there's an age discrepancy by a couple of years, so that might make up for it, because I think you were jumping like 6'6", 6'4", I don't know, somewhere in there. So I think it's going to be pretty close. We'll see. But
yeah. I don't think it'll work after having 3 kids, but who knows?
Make it happen. So down in Southern Miss and creating Bible studies through FCA with other girls?
It was anybody else. So all sports could come. It was mostly some track athletes from my track team. A lot of soccer players, a lot of the soccer girls came, and a few football players came. So there's probably like 30 or so people that came on a weekly basis.
So within that, right, I think something else, and I haven't met these people, but so you're in Southern Miss, you are 24, 32 hours away from where you grew up, right? Many states away. I can't count all those. There's way too many. But was there any people down there that were important in your life?
Yeah. So at the church that I ended up attending, and I don't remember exactly how we really initially met. It just kind of just worked out. But there was a gentleman down there that became my adopted father. So the church down there would have families that would adopt college students. And most of the time the students were from out of state, like I was. And it was basically just a way for them to love on you and you to feel like you weren't so far away from home. So Mr. Ron and Miss Debbie adopted me, as well as my roommate in college, Karen. And I remember my freshman year, I went to his house for Thanksgiving, and I believe Easter. And him and I still stay in touch. We would, on Sunday afternoon, sometimes him and I and Karen and some other friends, we'd all go to the gym on campus, and because it was open to the public if you bought a membership. So Mr. Ron would actually come to the gym, and we would just play basketball. And he'll randomly call out of the blue, even nowadays, and give me a hard time about, you always use your elbows, and you were always sharpening them before you played me, and I still got bruises on my back and whatnot. So, but he's come up to my house up in Wisconsin and visited when work has brought him up here. But really, it's just if I ever needed anything, he was just a phone call away, and he could be there. Him or his wife Debbie. Got to know their 2 daughters, Lauren, and I'm forgetting their daughter's name at this moment. But we would just go to their house and hang out. They'd invite us over for dinner on occasion, and he just always would just check in and see how I was doing, and if I needed anything, and if I needed groceries, which usually was fine with that, but just checking in, make sure that I was taken care of, and not feeling so lost and alone, being so far away from home. So.
Yeah, and I guess I bring that up because it's in my perspective, it's super impactful to have a family, a person, somebody, especially a husband, wife, kind of take on that suit of mom and dad, right? And I think we've attempted at New Life to be able to walk that out through the COVID, through this season now, and how do we engage with one another? And Kate was separated from her parents because of geography, right? yet here we're not so much separated geography wise. However, there's still a separation. And so how to encourage you guys, to encourage us, right? To be able to maybe think outside the box a little bit, and you have the capability of speaking into each other's lives, of just as she's saying, Mr. Ron was there just to shoot hoops, just to listen, just to check in. And sometimes that's all it takes. I'm going to continue with the story because there's another 2 couples that have been really impactful in her life that I know about. And for me, there's been a couple as well. And it has always been in those times of like loneliness, right? And that loneliness is geography, has been for us. But also it doesn't have to be, right? It can be while we're in the same town, while we're sitting in church, while we're doing whatever. And so I just love that it was so impactful for her in that time of being down south, being away from mom and dad, being away from this, and then to be able to see how parents love differently in different cultures in different ways. So, all right, I'll let you continue.
So basically, I throughout college, I mentioned before that Tennessee was really high pressure and Southern Miss wasn't quite as much so, but through my time there, as awesome as it was, and starting off with my faith and really trying to follow Jesus, was really just beat down because I wasn't considered like the elite athlete that I was when I was in high school. I didn't perform as well, so I had my coach kind of pressured me, and I ended up struggling pretty bad with just weight issues through college, and that kind of caused some depression. That amongst not being able to perform as well as I had been in high school, so it was just kind of a struggle. And graduated from Southern Miss.
Before she continues, huh?
Go ahead.
Before you continue, I mean, that's kind of a lot right there that you just kind of drop, and then all of a sudden you're graduating. What'd you do with the high pressure? What'd you do with the depression? What happened in that time?
Through that time, was just there were some dark times. I ended up, if we're gonna go really deep, I ended up cutting, dealing with stuff like that, and just wasn't in a good place. Just had a lot of lack of self-confidence, despite where I came from, or what I had been, even though I never really had a ton of confidence. All of it was based on being able to be the best, be the best athlete. I wasn't the smartest kid academically. I barely got through. I just got through, I should say, through high school. And so all of my identity, all of who I was basically based on being Kate the high jumper, or Kate the really good volleyball player, or Kate the all-around basketball player type thing. So for me, when I didn't have that when I was in college, it was really hard. And so yeah, it just kind of made me struggle. And I think that's where God orchestrated things for me to go to Southern Miss, where I would be exposed to just a different type of faith, and have that to fall back on, or have that as my foundation in the middle of just the mental turmoil that I was going through during that time. So yeah, struggled with all of that. Graduated just to really just be done with school. I was asked by the volleyball coach to stay on another year because I had another year of eligibility athletically, even though I was done course-wise with my degree. And I could have stayed on and played volleyball for another year, but I was just done, needed a change. And yeah, so I graduated 2005 and didn't want to use my degree because I realized how much politics was involved after I did my internship the summer after I finished my courses, and was just like, well, that's not really what I want to do. So I was kind of stuck. So So then I ended up working as a special needs aide at an elementary school. In my first year, I loved it. It was very rewarding, very challenging. But then again, through that, just kind of got burned down because it was the same thing, and nothing that I did was making a lasting change in the kids' lives. And for me, I needed to have that like almost instant gratification of seeing that all my efforts were being worth it. And for me, I realized like, okay, it's if I need to see this isn't the place for me to be, because I can't control what the kids are experiencing at home. I can't control. I can do what I can. I can do my best to love on these kids while I'm at school with them, but ultimately, what I'm doing here isn't going to make a lasting change. And selfishly, not selfishly, I still kind of see it as God working things out. I pursued a photographer in the area and just said, hey, like, I'm interested in photography. Would like to just kind of shadow you for a while. And it ended up that she was looking for an assistant. And she was going to do some training, and then I would get to go along with her to do triathlons and weddings and senior portrait sessions and help her with office work and whatnot. So transitioned from special needs aide to a photographer, as well as landscaping. I had landscaped off and on between or during my summers during college. So I landscaped, and I was working for a photographer after working at the school. If that makes any sense. And I started working with her, just really started to like photography, got to be pretty decent at editing based on how she taught me and just all the editing that I had to do with her. And was considering just making a career of that, because I knew I didn't want to do what my degree was for. So I basically, upon graduation and doing my internship, I kind of just set that completely aside. So all of that led up to me again being like, okay, well, now I have a college degree. Awesome. But I'm not doing anything with it. It's not really where I saw myself going, as far as life goals, I guess. And so yeah, it would just that darkness and that struggle, the depression that I had through college, kind of just continued because I wasn't getting all these accolades. I wasn't getting the praise that I had continued to get as growing up in sports. So and through that was still back in Wisconsin, was going to church and was really pursuing that and doing a lot of studies on my own, but wasn't really branching out to people, a lot of people my age, until a friend came along and asked me to play on a bar league, volleyball league with her. And that's kind of where I found another outlet to kind of keep me going, and just being able to have some fun. But again, through that was, had a family in Wisconsin that kind of took me on again, and just loved on me, let me hang out with them, would take me in their home just as if I was their own daughter for a while. So I had that safe place to go to. Not that I was still living with my parents. So I had that, but it wasn't really a refuge. I couldn't talk about a whole lot of stuff with my parents. We didn't have that type of relationship.
If I could, so why couldn't you talk to your parents? Or what was that one thing that really, I think about the depression, the cutting, all those things, as well as like not being able to have like that safe haven at home. What was that one thing that kept you from that?
When I was in 7th grade, the youngest of my brothers was killed in a car accident. And my parents didn't really know how to deal with the grieving process. And so my mom kind of just took gardening on and took that as her way of dealing with everything. And my dad he was really into reading and working. We had a small hobby farm, so he spent his time he was out in the fields working in the field, working in the farm or whatever, or working with the cows, he was reading a book or watching TV, but there wasn't a whole lot of interaction or discussion about my brother Josh, and what to do about it and how to handle his death. So that really separated, caused just a lot of just separation between my parents and I. And it was actually a few years back to where I was with the family in Wisconsin. A few years after I was in a car accident, actually. Nothing severe, but shaken up by it. My mom was pretty shaken up by it. And through that, there was just kind of a dispute between us and the insurance company. And my mom was on the phone. My dad didn't like what the insurance company kind of had to say. And I ended up yelling at my dad. And so my dad and I kind of had this huge fight. I left. A week went by where I was completely avoiding being home when my dad was home, or if I knew he was, I would just put my head down and go straight to my room. And if finally one day my dad came up in tears and apologized, which was a huge turning point for my dad and I. Really where him and I kind of had our relationship was based on talking about sports and technique, and really breaking down techniques. So for high jumping, and all my sports, my parents videotaped all of it. So I would rewatch those tapes and study, okay, when I'm high jumping, if I do this differently, or I can see what's going wrong in the part of where I'm going over the bar, if I need to arch my back more, if I need to kick, or, just different aspects of that. That's how my dad and I bonded. So after my dad and I's fight, that was just a huge turning point for us. And yeah, I guess backtracking a little bit. When I was in college, my parents ended up changing to a different church, to an Alliance church, and really ended up growing in their faith as well. Sorry. Which was it was obviously good for our family, and good for my parents personally in their faith walk. But it was just interesting how God took all of my ankles situation, and then Tennessee dropping and going to Southern Miss, and God using all of that to show me more of who He is. And then my parents kind of seeing a change in me, and then them deciding to do something different with their faith as well, take it a little bit more seriously, to a point, and going to a different church, walking away from the Lutheran church, and all of that. So, yeah.
So Chilton, photography, we take one big step after that. Where do you go? Why do you go?
Yeah, so I had worked for the photographer for I think a year and a half or so, and then got laid off because she didn't have enough work or business to keep me going through the winter. And I was playing volleyball with some women that one of them I had coached with. But one of the women, her husband owned a physical therapy clinic in Fond du Lac, and she said, "Hey, they need an assistant there. Like, you'd be really good for the job." So I ended up applying and got it. Absolutely loved it. Worked there for 2.5 years, but I was at the point where I was like, okay, I can't really afford to live on my own yet. But I really enjoy this type of work, this area of physical therapy. It was encouraged by both of my bosses, both of the owners, to pursue that. And I didn't really know which way to go. So I remember just constantly praying of like, okay, God, like, show me, is it photography that you want me to pursue, or do you want me to go for physical therapy? And I spent a good year and a half just praying, waiting for God to show me a sign and give me an answer. And I wasn't really going to take any steps until I knew exactly what God wanted me to do. And it wasn't until I had a friend who was actually who was from Montana, who was here visiting her family. And I remember her and I jumping on my sister's trampoline and just talking. And she's like, maybe God wants you to just step out in faith, just trust Him that He's going to take care of you. So whichever one you go after, just know that he just wants you to trust you within that. And for me, that was like, I had never thought of that. Like, I just thought like people get like their calling and it's like this obvious thing. And I was waiting for that and it never really happened for me. So I was like, okay. And like that summer, I remember looking at schools and being like, okay, what do I want to go for? Okay, I want to go for physical therapy or photography. And then Louis wanted to go out of state to kind of just get away from Wisconsin just for a change, just kind of, I guess, a fresh start. And I applied to Montana State, which is for photography, and then applied to the University of Montana, which is for physical therapy. I said, okay, God, I'm applying for both. I'm going to leave it up to you now to make a decision. Well, I ended up getting accepted to both schools. I was like, that's not really what I expected. And then from there, it was down to time and money. So I could finish my photography degree in less time and have less debt because I had to take out loans and stuff to pay for that school. So I went that route, and then I was able to live with my friend who was from Montana, live with her and her husband actually, while I was going to school. And I got there, and prior to moving to Montana and doing the physical therapy job, was doing much better in terms of depression. But then getting to Montana for me was like a total vacation. It was a great fresh start for me. The house that I lived in was out in was on the foothills of the mountains, and I could go out there and see mountains all around me, out in the country, but close enough to town that it wasn't a crazy drive. So it was just pretty awesome. And then our landlords actually lived right behind us, the house that we rented. And they were believers. And then our neighbors across the street from us, we lived in a big circle across the street from us, were believers as well. And I just got to know the landlords really well. They were awesome people. I ended up helping the husband coach the basketball team at the Christian school that they both worked at. Was mentored by my landlord for a while. She ended up having some health issues and kind of had to hand me off to somebody else. Not that that's the right terminology, but took care of me enough that she didn't just dump me. She said, hey, I still love you enough to, like, I'm going to point you to someone else who can take better care of you or help you better than I can right now. Which led me to my neighbors across the street, Jim and Lisa. And yeah, they were just awesome. Lisa and I would just go for walks on the road. It would be just quick text of, hey, I'm going for a walk. You got 5 minutes. Can you go? So, yep, let's go. So we just go down and just talk. We go down to the end of the road and then turn around, come back, or we'd go down or up Triple Tree, or there was like 3 trails right by our house that we could go up on. And yeah, and then from there, she just really challenged my faith with, okay, so if you're calling yourself a believer, like, what are your actions showing in my time there? Because I'm living there in that same house for 4 years and having a couple different roommates after my initial friend graduated and moved on. But just really challenged me to just live out my faith differently than I ever really had. So there's always disputes with roommates, and how can I love on them and extend grace to them and whatnot. So what am I missing?
Yeah, I think it goes, back to those women, those couples. And so just a challenge and or encouragement for you guys of, if you don't have a couple, or for you women, a woman in your life, or for you men, a man in your life that is speaking into you, or as Michelle just sent me or designed a cup for me that brings it back to Proverbs, and this proverb of iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another, right? And so as these women were spending time with Kate and really encouraging and yet challenging her along her path of her journey of understanding, of faith, and they're going to a different church out there at this time, and I think that's kind of part of where I start coming into the picture as well. I guess I'm just going to shut up and just let you kind of talk about that church part.
Yeah. So the church I attended out in Montana was great. I loved it. I learned a lot about the Bible out there. We would go through the Bible verse by verse, and like the pastor would have an entire sermon on a single verse. So you really got to know the background of why just everything was so important, why everything that's in the Bible is in there, and how it all kind of pulls together. But the church was pretty legalistic in terms of just, if you're a Christian, you definitely don't do this. And we tend to frown upon other churches or other believers that don't live the exact same way. So the struggle or the I guess just the realness, the vulnerability of being a human, and having questions and struggling and not always making the right choices and stuff, you just felt more judged, I guess. But I got to know the Bible really well. Like verse memorization was big, was very important there, and it's not a bad thing. It's definitely something that's very, very important to your journey. For me, it's been awesome to be in the middle of a conversation with somebody who's struggling and have a verse pop in my mind, or to be able to just be in thought, whether I'm cooking dinner or doing dishes or doing something and kind of grumbling about something in my mind, and then a verse can pop in and be like, okay, let's press restart. Let's change this around. So yeah, and there's just been times like my neighbor across the street, Lisa, like her and I, when we would go on our walks, we would actually challenge each other with the verses that we wanted to memorize. And so there's one that it's 2 Peter 1:3, and it's His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness through the knowledge of Him who has called us by His own glory and goodness. And that verse has come up so many times in my life, and her and I will just randomly text it to each other, and we'll both be like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly just what I needed right now in this moment. And that couple, Jim and Lisa, unfortunately ended up losing their son. Ben was killed in a skiing accident, I think 3 years ago now. And that verse is what I would keep texting to Lisa. His divine power has given us everything we need. And it would just be an encouragement for her during the really, really, really tough times that they're still walking through, really. But just as an encouragement for each other. And yeah, and really, okay, I know this, but how am I going to live this out? How am I going to choose to believe this? How am I going to choose to take action within the knowledge that I have? So I think that's where Sam and I kind of come together, is where I have more knowledge, and I don't try to say that arrogantly. But Sam's really challenged me with, okay, yes, how do you live that out? How do you take action? Yeah, I met Sam while I was living out there, came home for a summer, and some mutual friends ended up introducing us while I was home. And
they actually lived in Montana at that time. I knew them here. We both knew them individually here in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
They married. I knew him in college. She knew the girl, Brenda, the girl, Brenda, in high school. And so they then, our friend Casey, he gets a job out in Bozeman, Montana. And through Facebook, they saw each other, that they're both living in Montana. And so they started hanging out.
Yeah.
Continue.
So Brenda is the one that introduced us. And then, so when I came home, Sam and I started hanging out, and he couldn't really get rid of me, essentially. But he was planning to come out and visit our friends in Montana later on. So he just said, hey, why don't you just stay a couple extra weeks, and then I'll just drive back with you. So that's what we ended up doing. And by the end of that time, we were, I guess, dating, and then just continued dating each other long distance over that next year. And yeah, I think it was pretty crazy because I ended up going home like every month for the first 6 months that we knew each other, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, through that time was Sam was working at the high school as a guidance counselor, and I was still working on my photography degree in Bozeman. And a lot of our talks were just based on yeah, Kate, you can have this knowledge, you can have this wisdom or whatever you want to call it, but what are you going to do about it? How are you going to live it out? And that's still what he challenges me with daily. Yeah.
And this is where I get in trouble, right? Because she said the word wisdom, and that's something that I wrestle with, I struggle with, and I think we all should, right? Because I think we put people in that wisdom category, or because we see someone in a certain way, we insert that wisdom. And I would say we have knowledge, but the wisdom comes when we take that knowledge and we live it out. And we're able to really love someone, as we look at the world today, we love someone with the knowledge of God. There's so many of us, and that's why Jesus came, right, to challenge the Pharisees and Sadducees of the knowledge that the religious leaders, the leaders of the world had, but were hurting the people around him. And so Jesus wanted to model that, right, and wanted to challenge them with that, with love. And they didn't like that. And when we do that today, it's not challenging, but it's that word challenge, right? It's such a tough one. How do we influence? I think that word influence is so important. How do we influence each other with love and with just that accountability, taking that knowledge and being able to share it, and then really be able to live it out? And so those are many of the conversations we would talk around sports, around outdoors, all those kind of things. A lot of mutual enjoyments between Kate and I, which is really important.
Do you get intimidated by her knowledge? I don't know who it is.
That's Stacy. That's great, Stacy. Yeah, I think there is an intimidation there, right? I don't think there is, right? In my, and I go back to what Aaron and I talked about last week. In my false self, in my insecurities, yeah, and I think that's with anybody, right? Because when I live in the insecurity, I'm not good enough, right? And because she is more knowledgeable, or because her mind, I can look at a verse and it'll take me 35 times plus to memorize that, right? Where she might just see it one time and it's like a photographic memory, right? Which, yeah, there's envy there, as well as there's like an intimidation for sure. And so, I mean, we have a perfect marriage. I mean, we don't ever fight. And so, just kidding. But that's allowing us to really work through those things. And I think that's such a beautiful question, Stacy, in that acknowledging that there is that insecurity there for me. So, and even vice versa, right? Acknowledging that, like, I have the knowledge, but I don't really know how to walk this out. I don't know how to live this out.
And that's what I was just going to say. For me, it's knowing how to relate to people in a way where me sharing things, and I say this with caution because I don't want to be intimidating or in your face, but it's sharing my wisdom is also very, I guess the way that I just talk with people in general is very intimidating. I don't relate to people very well. So that's a good thing. That's where Sam comes in, and like his gift of relating to people and having conversation is showing me how to try and talk with people differently, versus being like, well, this is just the way it is, because I'm very black and white with a lot of things. But then Sam helps me to see, like, okay, if people aren't going to listen. You can have all this knowledge in the world, and people aren't going to listen to you unless they know that you have their best interest in mind. So, yeah. And
Stacey, you got some great questions.
Who's more competitive?
Admiration, yes. Kate is 100% more competitive than I am. That is in card games. That is in Scrabble. That is in basketball, volleyball,
Fishing, hunting.
Absolutely. It's in every way. That's an awesome. I've taken such a more humble approach and selfless approach with my wife, because she's all about winning. And
yes, he's very selfless in dragging out all the deer that I get. No.
Very good point.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I guess
kickball, yes. You've seen it.
Everything.
You've seen it.
Everything. I guess just to round it back up is, so yeah, my faith journey has been up and down, just like really anybody's. Sometimes you feel like it's been a whirlwind, you feel like you're walking down a path. And for me, it was walking down that faith path, that being a believer, but then still struggling with depression. And for me, that was that almost made it worse, because I'm a believer, so I shouldn't struggle with depression. And that, I think that in some ways did more damage, really, just as that mental game of, and it goes kind of wraps up into that legalistic mindset of, well, yeah, if you're depressed, then you're not really a believer. So it kind of just beat myself up in that sense with it. Yeah, Montana was awesome. For me, that was a vacation. And I think that was really just maybe the year before was really where I broke free and kind of was able to kind of just loosen those chains. And then moving to Montana, not that a place can save you, but God used Montana to, like I said before, just give me a fresh start. And not be carrying so much baggage.
One thing, and I know she's trying to wrap it up, and I know we're going a little long here, but you're up on stage like once in a while, like leading worship or playing the guitar. I know,
making noise.
She would call it making noise. I mean, have you always been playing the guitar? Have you always been singing?
No.
So what has, like, help us understand like the progression in this?
Sure. So grew up with severe stage fright. I was laughed at by a lot of people when I was like in the first or second grade. And for me, that was very traumatic because I thought they were laughing at me, not at like how cute it was, but they were like saying, oh, what she's doing is wrong, is how I took it. So for me, like from that point on, like I wouldn't sing in front of people. I definitely would not dance in front of people. I remember going to like high school dances just to hang out with my friends, and my friends literally trying to drag me on the dance floor, and I'm holding onto the legs of tables so that they can't take me out there because that's how afraid I was.
That's how it was our wedding night too, guys.
But yeah, like I never sang in front of Sam, at least not seriously. Like I would do like a goofy voice or something like that in the car. And he would always say, this noise, whatever. And he's like, maybe that is how I sing. If it is, what are you going to do? You know? And, but all in total, in just out of insecurity. Cause I was too afraid to show him my real self. Which really is a shame because he's my husband and I should be able to share all of me with him without any hesitation. But there's just areas, notably music, singing, dancing, playing instruments or whatever, that I wouldn't really share with him very often, mostly at all. I would play the guitar in front of him every now and then. But when I was in college in Mississippi, actually, I taught myself how to play guitar. my dad taught himself how to play the guitar when he was in the Navy. So I grew up watching my dad and listening to him, and he would just occasionally like just bust it out and play a bunch of songs. And for me, those were really sweet times for our family. Because it was my dad was essentially being vulnerable with that as well. But it didn't happen very often. And then, when I got the guitar, that was another way for my dad and I to bond. So that we kind of grew there. But I never really saw myself doing anything with it other than maybe just eventually playing for my kids at some point, which I still don't really do. Sam always yells at me about.
Not yells. Not yells. I mean, we're
he challenges me about.
Not even challenges.
Influences me to do it differently.
Maybe questions. Maybe questions. Encourages, influences another good word.
But yeah, so how I became to be playing for church is we just needed a worship team at church, and Sam had told Aaron that that I could play the guitar, and after lots and lots of conversations,
years of prayers,
questions,
guys, years of that's not even sarcastic. Years of prayers. Yes.
Aaron kind of came kind of desperately. No offense, Aaron. But kind of desperately, and just like, we just need somebody to go out there and just, you don't have to do it well. I'm like, okay, sweet, because it won't be well. And then finally I just agreed. I said, okay, but I'm not going to sing. I'll play the guitar if you find someone else to sing. So it started off with Carissa in singing and me playing the guitar, and then Butch playing the drums. And all three of us really were very intimidated by it, very nervous about it. Yeah, I remember the first time we played for worship on a Sunday morning, we were all shaking. I'm pretty sure I almost had to go to the bathroom to throw up. I was so nervous. And then eventually it led to the singing. Just as at practices, Carissa and I would sing, or I would have to sing a part for her because she wasn't super familiar with the songs that we were playing. And kind of just gained a little bit of confidence in singing in front of at least those two people. And eventually, I don't even know how it came about. I think Danon asked me to, or we were doing a practice with somebody, and they're trying to sing the harmony, and I was with the practice, and I kind of said, well, is this how it goes? And Danon's like, yeah. So then he's like, eventually from there, he asked me to start singing with him on occasion for some songs, and I'm still not at all confident in it whatsoever. I know God has blessed me with, I guess, the understanding of some music. So I just kind of take that and run with it. It's not something that I'm not confident with it, but if me doing that can get others to, I guess it's at 2 points, is if me singing can get other people to get in the motion of singing, that's awesome. And then B, if I can overcome that fear and sound not so great when I'm on the stage, I hope that gives others the freedom to not care so much about what they sound like either. And because it's not about sounding good at any point, really. It's about where your heart is. So my hope is that by me being on stage, is that people are seeing that it's about your heart and your intentions behind it. So, if I can do it, then anybody can do it. God doesn't care what we sound like.
I just find it cool as she's just sharing with that, and just kind of that understanding of where she was, just having 4 state titles in high jump and having a full ride scholarship and those kind of things. And a lot of people in this world would say, man, that is like the top of the top, right? But even in that, like, that was broken down. That was taken away, right? Through insecurities here, through your brother's death, through a coach that didn't speak your language and not being able to work through that. But then through that brokenness, you found God.
Right.
And that started this journey in a long journey, right? And yet here we are, 15 years later, or whatever it is, and you're on stage really relinquishing control, right? Whereas when you were in college or going there, it was all about control.
Right. I knew I was good at it. Right.
And so in that control, and I go back biblically, right? Those that think they're first, those that are first will be last, right? And that for me, I work through that. And those of us that put ourselves lowly or last, right? God will lift us up. And I love that Kate is surrendering, right? Surrendering fear, surrendering control, surrendering all these different insecurities, these fears, to go in front and really worship God. And in that, right, he's going to bless, and has. Like, I've seen it in her marriage. I've seen it in how she loves our kids and how she communicates with people. It's been cool that there's been this freeing, right? And so that's so encouraging. And it's not just about those things. It's about just us growing in who Christ has designed us to be. And so I love just to hear that story and just kind of bring that all together of how quickly things can be just like taken from us. And like, I think in our minds, if we're not on solid ground, solid biblical ground, right, how fast our minds can go to the negative and be in the pity parties or be in that state of depression and not get out of it, especially if we don't have people surrounding us. Right? God has blessed you, has blessed me when we were in bad spots, that like has brought women, couples into your life to tend to you, right? Tend to me, tend to us. And that's been so cool. And so, yeah, if you guys are watching this, listening to this, if this helps you, man, praise God.
I hope it makes sense. I know it was everywhere. Sorry.
And but that's also why we kind of want to do these, right? And I also want you guys to be able to see that, like, a little bit. And no, I didn't share anything about me, really. But that this is us doing it together and trying to do it together, man. It's far from, I got on the phone today and she was screaming my ear off in a couple of different ways. Okay, maybe I was screaming her. We might have gotten an argument today, right? But she asked for forgiveness, and maybe that's reversed. I asked for forgiveness, right? I apologized. And so we struggle just like anybody else does, right? Our house is messy just like anybody else. We need each other's help, and we're sharing this because we're giving you permission to speak into our lives. We're giving you permission to do life together. And Stacey, I love it. Thank you for being vulnerable. Yeah, thank you, Kate. Those aren't easy things. It's taken a long time of me really beating her down with just like asking questions and engaging differently, because it's hard. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to share those things because people have hurt us. And yet in those hardest moments, what I've heard you say was God was there, right? And so is God my higher power? Is God my God? Or is somebody else, something else, my God? And so I want to encourage you to really process through, reflect on those things, and really continue to attempt to put God on the throne of our lives, put him as the highest. And that's something I have to dive to every day. We need to dive to every day, and it's tough. So to encourage you guys, if this is something you'd love to do, this is just a different platform to be able to do it, where either I or Aaron will jump on, and I just want to kind of give my wife kind of free reign of just sharing her story. And so it's a little bit different than maybe the others. And so if you have questions, like I'd encourage you to email her, email Kate, email me, Aaron, Lisa. I think there's still, if you look at this throughout the week, you can still leave messages on there. We're here for you, and however we can come alongside you on this journey of life and learning how to be more Christ-like, we'd love to be able to walk that through with you. So,
yeah, I guess the last thing that I think is coming to me right now is that my hope and prayer is that you don't that we don't limit ourselves to what our faith journey is supposed to look like. For me, I never saw myself being a pastor's wife never ever was that a thought in my mind. And there's self-inflicted expectations within that, as far as how it's supposed to look and how we're supposed to act and be. And I definitely do not fit that mold by any means. But I'm trusting that God is able to use that to show who he really is within it, because God doesn't need perfect people. And above all, I guess my point is, no faith story is perfect, but it's perfect in its own way. If that makes any sense. It's not what we think it's going to be, it's what God makes it to be. So I think of like my faith journey is basically a big canvas with a bunch of splatters on it. And the season is here, and there's splats here, and there's big blobs here, and there's this color here, and then the next season it's different blobs. And by the time I like to at least picture this, by the time I finish my time here, it's a masterpiece, right? But it's only seeing it unfold in little bits and pieces. So and trusting none of ours is the same.
And trusting that God has it, right? Has us, and he's got us on the straight path. We're the ones that, make those choices off the path, right? And we lose sight, and then yet he's still there waiting for us.
And it might not be going the way that you would expect. But it's not supposed to look like anybody else's. I guess is my point. So for me, it's me each day trying to own the uniqueness, trying to own the ugliness of it. Every day I'm constantly in prayer about, what do I do about Tegan or Quinn doing this or acting this way? And really it always comes back to, how am I reacting to the situation? So how am I reacting to Quinn screaming, or how am I reacting to life not going the way I wanted it to, in terms of I'm not living in Montana? Or if, I guess, I don't want to drown it out, but just own where you're at and be willing to share. And that's a challenge for me, is being willing to share it with other people. Like today, I was just texting my friend. She texted me out of the blue, just a little quote from her devotion. And I was like, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. Because yesterday this happened, and I left and went to bed, and the house was totally destroyed. And I was just like, I'm done. I didn't really care. But it was just, it's in those moments, it's finding that Jesus is still there with you in those. He doesn't leave us. He's always there, even when we're walking away or making a poor choice, that he's there with us and still loving us and just waiting for us to just reach out and acknowledge our fact that we need him. So that's where I'm at on a daily basis. It's being a mom and a wife. So
survival mode at this point, 3 little ones. So guys, we so appreciate you tuning in with us. I know it was a long hour.
Sorry.
Kate, you guys think I like to talk, man. Kate, when you get her going, wow. I'm kidding, but no, I'm not. All right, so we thank you so much, and we hope you guys have a great week. And once again, if you guys need anything from us, please let Aaron and I know. We love you. Peace.
Bye. Thanks.